This is
Got it.
Dr. Paul from menpsychology.com, men's psychology Substack, media Substack, and then my own with Jeremy Fox yet again from Next Level Psychology. So,
That's right.
having a lot of fun recently getting into movie watching and diverging a little bit from our frequent topic of romance and human courtship and things like this, the relations between men and women by starting out with the John Wick series and the mythology behind that and the psychology behind John Wick. And then a natural extension, I thought, was to suggest this time around to look at the new Netflix and the Hunter whole universe, a very critically panned film. I found out just today. I kind of liked it. I liked the story. I'm of Slavic descent, so I didn't references to Russians and Ukrainians and things like this, and father son connections are throughout the movie, and it's
Yeah.
not so much about men and women.
Right.
What did you think of the film? When did you first hear this character, Kraven the Hunter? Turns out he's a villain or an anti-hero.
Yeah, good question. So my dad was a big Spider-Man fan. I say was. He's
Really?
still yeah, no, my dad,
Huh.
so he is a Gen Xer, I would say, and he grew up reading like Spider-Man
Wow.
comics in the that era,
Yeah.
when Spider-Man was just kind of first out. So he like I also saw the Spider-Man cartoon in the 90s. So there was one that was very
Right.
popular for kids on Fox, the Fox Kids
Yes.
Saturday morning block and then afternoon block. And so I had a little bit of exposure to Craven. I mean, so you could think about it like there's villains like the Joker, like is to Batman, and then there's
Yeah.
villains like the Scarecrow or whatever. I mean, not even or Two Face. I mean, those are still pretty prime villains. But what I'm saying is like, so Spider-Man's big villains are like Venom and Carnage and even Doctor Octopus. It's like Craven is not really
Sure.
one you hear that much. That was like a top
Right. Right.
known
Yeah.
villain. So
Yeah.
I think, and like Morbius, the Morbius movie that came out that really bombed and
Oh yeah.
it
Yeah.
became a meme almost. It was so
Yeah.
poorly, and then they released it again and it did poorly again. Um, so I'd heard of Craven. I knew that his whole shtick was like the most dangerous game. The hunter
Right.
who
Right.
hunts man. I knew it was that, but I didn't have like this connection to any storylines that I'd followed at all. I just knew of him as a character.
Yeah. Um I hadn't heard of him at all, even though I, like your dad, uh loved Spider-Man. Spider-Man was my favorite superhero growing up. And I know why. And how he is very differentiated from the mythology of this Craven figure. And we can get into masculine instincts. And I just realized, wow, mind blown. The reason we're talking about superhero films here is every superhero is basically a Greek god. They are. They're a
Yeah.
rehash of a Greek god. And as you all probably know, we talk often, and I talk often about Greek mythologic figures as representing inherent, inborn, genetic masculine and feminine instincts. That's what they represent. The Greeks had it all figured out with their mythology, and then today we have superhero films. So why Spider-Man? I don't know. Who's your favorite superhero, Jeremy? Mine is Spider-Man.
It's a really good question. I would say, man, I'm probably gonna go with
Batman.
for off the top. Yeah, how did you know? I was gonna say
I
Batman.
could just tell, man. I'm a psychiatrist.
I do like. Well, I
I
mean, I
could just
really do
tell.
like the more. So I grew up with the more grounded, gritty take on Batman of
Yeah,
him, like post.
yeah,
So I wasn't reading comics in the late '80s, but
yeah.
I wasn't able to read then. I was not even born for a lot of that. So, but when it comes like Batman in the '60s was a goofball, like the blue suit Batman, the Adam West, which I have respect for. But then
Oh,
watching the
yeah,
cartoon
yeah,
in the '90s, that was really like for kids and adults because it was
yeah.
so gritty. I thought Batman was a really good brooding. I mean, but the era that I grew up, that was what was cool for superheroes, was to kind of be the brooding, serious sort of take. So, but I think Batman has a lot of exploration of like a rogues gallery that has psychiatric conditions we can look at. Like, and it was
Oh,
very
oh
like they're
yeah,
very interesting. Um, but I thought Spider Man was cool too because the Tobey Maguire version was really
yeah,
popular. I remember that
yeah.
movie was just like the biggest superhero movie. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
bigger than X Men was, which I think
sure.
Wolverine's awesome. By the way, he's another cool one.
Yeah, I can. I don't know why I can just tell you're into that. And yeah, the Adam West Batman was, unintentionally campy, from what I
Oh yeah,
understand. Like it came across so it was supposed to be serious, but it was so campy that it was like a cult following for
yeah,
the camp. But then
yeah,
Batman gets serious, after that series ends. I remember vividly as a child, getting a little into Batman, but then kind of getting scared off in a way because it was just too dark for me. I
yeah,
read a comic that took place at Christmas time, and Batman was getting attacked. Somebody was trying to assassinate him, and wraps Christmas lights around his neck and is like,
yeah.
uh, basically suffocating him, asphyxiating him, and then I think he gets away from it. But I was like, whoa, super dark. And then I wasn't that into that, and I got into Spider-Man instead. And so,
Spider Man's cool.
what is this all about? What's the mythology quickly of Spider-Man's creation by Stan Lee? It was that they were purposely looking for something for adolescent boys,
Okay.
coming of age, and probably college bound or high school graduation bound, and they wanted to do something that wasn't just pure masculine tough guy and pure feminine, tough woman diplomat, but something in between that showed an adolescent kind of development. And so what they came up with was kind of a brainy kid, like a science geek kid,
Yeah.
which I was.
Right.
So it definitely spoke to me as a science geek, and not somebody that loves to get in fights, fist fights and so forth. Rather solve things through the intellect, as I'm sure you do too. But that's why I came to love Spider-Man. So then you have this Kraven, who is one of the either villains or anti-heroes potentially, who tries to hunt Spider-Man. And I just learned his mythology is he wants to be the best hunter in the world. He's boastful about that, just like the Greek figure Ares, or even
Yeah.
better, the Greek figure Orion, the hunter,
Yeah.
was, and that's the DC Comics version of Kraven. The name is Orion in DC. Okay,
Very
and
interesting.
it's just so obviously the god or demigod Orion from the Greeks, who was all about being a hunter, but he was so into that instinct he was undiplomatic and rude and kind of a womanizer, and he was sleeping around with everyone. And then the other gods got so enraged at him doing this that they punished him by plucking his eyes out. Orion. So they pluck his eyes out, and he's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And he goes to Hephaestus, who is the technology god, and asks Hephaestus for new eyes. And Hephaestus goes, I can't give you new eyes. That's going to insult Zeus, who plucked your eyes out already, and that's your punishment. And so, what do we know from evolutionary psychology? And talk just a little about men and women in courtship and getting along. What attracts people? Males are visually attracted at first.
Right.
That's how they first.
Typically.
That's
Yeah.
how they first meet
Yeah.
women in dating is the visual. It's the whole reason for the cosmetics industry, the oldest industry in the world, as opposed to the oldest profession. So the eyes, the visual appeal. So why did Orion get his eyes plucked out? It's so he couldn't see women anymore. But it simultaneously ruined his ability to hunt. So he
Right.
couldn't do either of the two drivers of
Yeah.
instinct to the
Procreation or
evolutionists:
survival. Yeah.
procreate and survive, right? Survive is hunting. That's his
Sure.
profession. Procreate is visual appeal of being attracted to the other sex. So this is
Right.
gone. And Hephaestus tells, I will get back to Craven, but Hephaestus tells Orion, I won't give you new eyes. However, I will give you this. I will give you uh, a boy helper of mine, an apprentice named Sedalian, and he can stand on your shoulders and be your eyes for you. And if you head east toward the sun, toward the sunrise, and ask Helios for new eyes, he will give you new eyes. But you're going to have to use Sedalian to guide you to the sun, to the east, to the sunrise. Now, what does all that symbolize? It's saying you got to prove that you have learned your lesson. You've gotten your punishment. Your eyes are plucked out for being a
Right.
womanizer. And now you can't hunt and you can't find romance. But through the eyes of a child, a little boy who will be your guide, I think of a son, having a son.
Yeah.
My own son's perspective is amazing. It's so truthful and honest and good. It's full of goodness and kindness, but fact too.
Right.
That you borrow your son's eyes sometimes as a wayward man who is prone to make mistakes, bound to make mistakes. So the innocence of boyhood can be borrowed to lead you to new eyes. And so if you reach the sunrise in Helios is the ultimate daylight or enlightenment. Wisdom and enlightenment, right, is daylight. It's the same thing that kills vampires, right? Broad daylight.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so the idea is you must prove you've truly learned your lesson and grown and corrected your wrongs, your moral wrongs. Then you are given your eyes back. So I thought
Yeah.
that's interesting. So Orion is Kraven. So maybe there is some kind of parallel to the Kraven story, which I didn't know ends in suicide, unfortunately. Yeah, Kraven eventually pursues Spider-Man, fails to hunt him and get him. As Spider-Man prevails, and then Kraven is like, "Well, nothing left to live for, because all I wanted is to be the ultimate hunter, and that would have meant capturing Spider-Man, which he could do." So he ends up shooting himself, I guess, in the mythology. So all this is interesting in terms of what you know about the epidemiology of sons of cruel fathers. And I don't have a personal perspective on this because my father was a kind, brilliant man, mathematician and pilot and teacher, and he was very kind. So I don't get at the gut level what it is like to be abused by a father, but many others do, men and women both. So I thought the Craven story was interesting in Russell Crowe's terrible acting as an abusive Russian father, and
Right.
then the effect on the two sons. One son going very dark and wayward and weak, and the other son seeking to escape the Oedipal conflict and transcend it and become a man who is now a hunter, who is basically Orion or even Ares. Ares is the god of war to the ancient Greeks. Okay, so just I know I'm being talkative, but let me just finish by saying what John Barry, Louise Liddon, Martin Seeger, Kingersley in University College London and British Psychological Society have illuminated for us all is that the first three male instincts have been established as being in every culture of the world, probably throughout history. The first is called the protect and provide, kind of a father-like instinct. I call that the Zeus. It's the Zeus instinct. The second is to fight and win. To fight and win. That's the Ares instinct. That's what I call it. And that's the same as what you see in Craven, only kind of a twisted abuse way. So maybe your PTSD expertise and EMDR expertise can come into play here, where it's abnormal adolescent boy development to have had an abusive father and to want to become a true man, a mature man, but with this twisted way of the use of the Ares instinct, which is to fight to win, to hunt, to be on a sports team and win, to go after what you want. It's goals, striving for goals. It's the ultimate male feeder of the soul through striving for goals. That's the Ares instinct or the hunter instinct. Doesn't mean killer, it means hunter. It means win at your goals. And
Right.
then the third one is Batman. The third one is the one you like, I think. Not to invade your opinion, you tell me. But Batman is Hades, clearly Hades from the ancient Greeks, the god of the underworld. Batman is the god of the underworld, where he has his cave, his literal bat cave, which is the literal underworld to the ancient Greeks, which
Right.
isn't hell or heaven. It's just the unconscious. It's going into your own personal private nest to heal yourself, to process your traumas, perhaps alone, to consider your new strategy for your life alone and clear headed and without invasion of all kinds of distractions and demands in your bat cave. That's Hades. And that's the third instinct discovered, not discovered, but elucidated by Barry Seeger, Lydon, Kingersley,
Right.
and that's Batman. So you literally see each of these superheroes and supervillains, the villains being kind of a twisted form, maybe a traumatized form of the more
Yeah.
positive, noble, wise, masculine, and don't forget feminine instincts, because there's always female parallels. And I don't know why there aren't female superheroes so much, but I really don't know why. To the ancient Greeks, the female deities were just as important as the male
I got one
deities
for
and just
you.
as instructive. So I
I
will
got
shut
I
up
got
now. I have a lot
I've
to
got a
say.
female superhero for you. Think
Yeah.
about Wonder Woman and think about the female evolutionary imperative to suss out if a man is telling the truth about his ability to fight, win, and provide. She has a lasso of truth, and women want to test and determine. Okay, you can talk the talk,
Oh,
but can you walk the walk, brother? Can
oh,
you
I never
be
thought
the
of that.
man? I just
Wow,
thought
I
of
never
that.
thought of the lasso of truth.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, it's a
That's
vetting
cool.
mechanism. And no one's gonna like she's beautiful. So people are gonna want to tell her what she wants to hear. I mean, it's all you all read in we all read into this on a deeper level, the deeper structure of the
Yes.
story. It's like, oh, she's beautiful because that's what sells. Sure, but I mean, you could say that for any art. Great art throughout history has had beautiful women and fit men. So it's like, well, it
Yeah, and
goes a
that's
little
the
bit deeper
ultimate
than
representation. Yeah. Well,
so.
that I call the Aphrodite
Right.
instinct in females. It's the
Well,
goddess of the feminine form,
so then you get
both
into
erotic and maternal. So,
yeah, I
sorry.
agree. No, I mean, so you get into Wonder Woman, like her whole culture of the Amazons, the Themyscira culture, like
Yes.
is beautiful and deadly. It's like, okay, so you have two things to I don't want to get off on I want to live up to our title, so I'm gonna pivot it back. I'm glad I put that out there. We'll discover that later. We'll uncover
Yeah.
more of that.
Yeah.
So I mean Craven, let's unpack my view of it from a traumatology perspective.
Yeah.
So he's a
Yeah.
young kid. He and his brother are pretty similarly developmentally whatever
Yes.
personality wise is pretty similar at that point. He's a little more
They
outgoing
love each
and
other. They got each other's back.
yeah. So
Yeah.
at that point, so Craven when he's younger, he gets dragged on this hunt with his father, who's this very sort of predatory figure who just want. I mean, I'm not saying hunting is wrong at all. We have to hunt. Like deer population can overgrow territories, and it leads to total ecological destruction. So, so Craven as a younger kid is taken on this journey to uh basically become a man, and it goes wrong. He gets too much too quick, too just accelerated.
Initiation.
Yeah, so his initiation though goes awry because he's
Yeah.
essentially trampled by animals, which is very
Yeah.
frightening. See, his dad bit off more than Craven could chew, so he ends up having this magical elixir. It's very potent that brings him back to life. Now, where does he get it? He gets it from a female companion that he'd spoken to. So you can analyze some kind of gender dynamics there if you wanted to, like anima and animus. But so he takes this elixir, he comes back, and he gets the help of animals, like the ability to how Spider-Man is bitten by a spider and takes on the power of the spider. Okay, Craven, at this point, just known as Sergey by his real name, uh, until he transforms, whatever, gets the ability to have super strength and accelerated speed and all of these different elements that come with that animal kingdom gifting. But
Sure.
I mean, I think. we could look at it and say, well, so Batman's transformed by losing his parents in a massive PTSD traumatic episode. Spider-Man gets bitten by a spider and his uncle dies. Okay, not related, but PTSD episode. Kraven
Oh
almost
yeah,
dies in a safari from wild
right.
animals that would scare most people. PTSD, and what does he do?
A lion. A
Yes, a
lion
lion.
bites him.
It does. So Craven decides, okay, so he comes out of that and he starts to master the very elements that attempted to kill him, and he internalizes that, and that reaction form. He has that repetition compulsion. Like
Yes.
he then takes, instead of hunting animals like his father, he hunts
Right.
criminals, and he takes on this persona. It's like, well, that's like a traumatic reaction that just keeps playing out. Now it makes for good movies, it
Yes.
makes for good character development, but there's an obsession to it, right? Just as how Batman can become very obsessive. Um, and I think traumatic incidences that are very disempowering are what often lead to that
Yeah.
level of obsession, because you're like,
Shaming.
no, I have to, it's tied to your life and death on an unconscious level. You have to keep figuring out the problem. Batman's called the greatest detective. Well, I mean,
Huh.
he got his beginnings through tracking down criminal rings. Well, why do you do that? Well, he
Yes.
he wants to bring order, because that disorder and chaos took away his nurturing, safe, anchoring parental background. He became an orphan, not just one parent, but both. So he wants to bring
Hmm.
order to life because he was thrown into chaos at such a young age. So I just see that trauma thread running in Craven. I mean, I think we're supposed to see that. And I'll wrap it up and say, I mean, it's interesting that Craven becomes so focused on this idea of hunting predator. Like he's not they present him as kind of an anti-hero, right? Because he goes really far. And I think they turned up the dial of like, okay, with extreme trauma can come extreme reactions.
Yes.
Um, I mean,
It's all, if, in a Freudian sense, but a very old word. It's a castration theme. It's
yeah,
castration by the father instead of initiation
yes.
into
So
mature
castration.
masculinity.
Yes,
Yeah,
and I think it's interesting. He
and
does.
castration just means shame. Just means
Yeah.
male shame.
So Calypso is like this surrogate mother figure, right? The one who gives him this post
Yes.
power back. It's like, and you could view, not to steal your thunder, but what
Yes.
men get from women and what we give each other, right? But that's like, well, what that's symbolic for maybe some kind words, or the you can do it attitude that in a normal life a man would meet a woman after he has abusive parents who says, you know what, I see um, potential in you, and then he goes on to his life's mission, which might not be hunting criminals, it might be building a business empire, right? So all of this can be
Right.
taken.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, very
Wow.
cool stuff. It's
What do
I
you
love it.
what do you say to, technical term? What do you say to? I forgot about Calypso for a
Yeah,
moment. Calypso is amazing, and she's the ultimate beneficent mother. So if you have abuse, I've never experienced this personally, but if you had ultimate abusive father and beneficent mother, doesn't that lead to potential Oedipal victory? They call it an Oedipal victor is a
yes,
mama's kind of a mama's boy. But hey, who wouldn't with such a kind, life saving
yeah,
mother and abusive
yeah,
father? So Craven is trapped in his shame or castration, becomes an Oedipal victor with Calypso, and relives his trauma every day of his life
yeah,
till he finally suicides because he can't become the ultimate hunter. So you got the theme of narcissism too. I love all this because on the one hand, the work of Barry Seeger and others laying out masculine and feminine instincts as real, inherited, genetic, never going away, not in the next 200,000 years. It's not learned behavior. It's proven now. It's every world culture. But counterpoint to the possible positive use of the instincts in wisdom, uh, kind initiation by elders of the
yes,
village. The counterpoint is trauma slash narcissism. Because if you have the traumatic narcissistic father initiating the boy, or or the mother initiating a girl,
Yeah.
narcissistically, they devour they devour their child. They
Yes.
use their child, literally devour their soul,
Yeah.
which is what castration is for the male,
Yeah.
and shame. It all fits together because you can either be narcissistic approach as the mentor parent, village elder, or you could be wise, kind, beneficent, uh, high character parent.
Yes.
And
Well,
then, so the instincts themselves are not either good or bad. Like, there's no such thing as toxic masculinity or toxic femininity. They just are what they are, and they can be used for good or for narcissistic end points.
I get what you're saying. Like, you wouldn't call a bow and arrow a good bow and arrow or a toxic one. It's what you aim at. I think
Yeah,
that's right.
it's just a bow and
Okay.
arrow. Yeah,
Right. I mean, I would say that's a really good view of it. When we look at the Kraven character, we know his mom passed. We know that his dad was like the sole parental force there, it seems like. So they didn't have that balancing motherly
right.
caring feature. They had a father who didn't do a good job translating the adult world in doses, right? Chewing it.
Yes,
Parents have to chew and kind of metabolize adulthood and reality in formats that they can then hand their children. Say, okay, here you're going along this path a little bit more. You need to know about the world a little bit more, a little bit more. And for
I
parents
forgot
that,
their mom died. I
yeah,
totally
yeah,
forgot about their mom dying at the beginning. And didn't she die of suicide? And then the
uh,
father said, "Your mother was weak.
yeah.
She
Well,
was
yeah, and
mentally
I don't
ill and
know.
weak."
Yeah,
He
which is
said,
like mental health issues and weakness is like, excuse me, mental health issues is being portrayed like, oh, this is weakness. It's very interesting. I mean,
"Yeah,
so of course you're going to go toward grandiosity and like say, okay, well, I have the power of the animal kingdom. I mean, what makes the superhero movies he actually does, right? This isn't a fantasy. Um, but the splitting of humans bad, nature good. I think that's a fascinating element.
ah,
Which, my God, why would
yes,
he not do that after growing up
yes."
literally in the mob? I mean, and there's not
That's the
really.
era of Into the Wild with Emil
Yes.
Hirsch. Into the Wild is the grand error. Nature is better than human conscious logical thought.
Well, exactly. And that's such a splitting thing because the idea of anything being intrinsically good just because it's different than the horror that you knew is like this fundamental, very primitive defense mechanism. I mean, it really is an anti-hero movie because like Craven, he's taken out the mob, his brother's in the mob, his dad want I mean, I don't want to spoil it. I think people should give it a watch because it's not much of a time investment, but there's not really a lot of good guys. The female
Right,
Calypso character
right.
is the sound kind of voice of wisdom and measured response and whatever. Kind of this archetypal. I mean, you could call what would you say maybe she's kind of an Athena figure? She represents this sort of wisdom that she equips a hero with.
I think
Um,
she's a muse.
okay, there you
I
go.
think it's the meaning of a muse is the muses were the artistic inspiration who were
Sure.
perfect, beneficent, and gave the usually the male gave a male ideas, strategies, solutions out of thin air,
Yeah.
miraculous solutions, which you
Yeah.
learn in your cave. You learn in your bat cave. That's where you meet your muses in
Yeah.
Batman's bat cave. But I forgot about the mother dying. And didn't she write him a letter granting him something? She gave him some kind of wisdom, and I didn't see what was in the letter. She left him
Yeah.
a letter,
Man. Yeah.
right? There was some kind of wise advice that he didn't tell the father that the mother gave him. It might have been
Yes.
how to find Calypso. It might have been about Calypso or something. It was like a suicide note, I think. The mother's letter
Yeah.
in
Well,
Russian.
yes. I need
I
to
can
finish
pronounce the Russian, but I can't understand it.
that. That's what my mother was insane. Da, 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 da. Yeah. One of the
She's
interesting
like,
things.
Sergey, this is my last message to you, Sergey, from your mother.
Okay. Yes. I need. I don't want to contribute to a lot of dead air here, but I that'd be interesting to find that
Yeah.
letter. I'm not sure of that one. I
Well,
remember. I mean, it's been over a month at least since
well, I
this.
think
So
the motherless son eventually the
yes,
only thing that will substitute is finding his muse.
yeah.
Finding his muse is the only mother substitute for the traumatic loss of the mother.
Well, think about it this way too. I would say one of the interesting things about the movie is you've got a world of masculinity without femininity at all. And so like you have
Right.
he's not even really focused on
There's no balance.
romance. He's not
No.
focused on romance. He's focused on hunting, killing, surviving. And
Right.
I mean, so it's interesting because if it went the other way, like you could produce a neurotic character. So his background is very much like, okay, father introduces him to the dog eat dog, killer be kill world to become
Right.
basically a killer. Okay, so now it's a split because Sergei's like, well, actually, I don't. Your morals are terrible, and you contributed to my mother dying with your unbridled ruthlessness, and I don't want to go that way. So I'm going to prey on the the evil, kind of like a Dexter character, like the serial killer who kills serial killers, and he's an anti-hero. He'd be interesting for us to
Uh-huh.
explore. Um, and so I'm just going to go take apart these networks and put my masculine instincts of fighting and winning. In this instance, killing and winning, right? It's not symbolic at all. It's very literal. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and that shows though that he has that logic. So I didn't know, and I think so. All these comic book characters die and live in different ways. I'm not saying you're wrong. In the continuity that
Sure.
you're talking about, like in the comic, I didn't know that he ended up. I don't want to thwart your
Yeah.
broadcast
Yeah.
here. Use the S word. You can't say the S word on YouTube. You have to say unalived yourself. So I
Oh.
didn't know he unalived himself.
Oh wow.
Uh, I didn't know that, and
Okay.
so that's interesting, but it actually kind of goes along with the PTSD and the mental health issues because there's that black and white thinking of I'm either the top dog or I'm nothing, like his dad taught him. So he didn't get away from his dad's logic, though. The ultimate victory would be to
Right.
say, you know what, Dad? Actually, I can be pretty damn good at something and masterful and
And
build.
not the best.
Yeah, but like the
And
way
not the
that
best.
high
It's okay to
performers.
not be the best.
I mean, yeah, the battle between, I'm not going to call it battle, like Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, like they're
Bezos.
all they're all billionaires, but like they're going to switch and who has the most at any time, and it's not going to have to matter who does, because
Sure.
you have to overcome the the small loss in money to chase the big stuff. Like the big thing, like high performers fail quickly and they learn and they don't wallow in it. They just keep going. You can't obsess over it because you won't move forward. And that's what separates like the single millionaires from the multimillionaires, is because it's like if you get so in your head about something, you're not using money as a tool. You're obsessing over losing. It's like he obsesses over being the best hunter or nothing. And so you're not going to keep moving forward if it's binary like that. And so that's like you could look at that as like a traumatic, that his logic was thrown into this trauma mode of either I'm going to die by another hunter or I have to kill myself because I'm not good enough and they're going to kill me. So I think that's where you see the trauma influence the most on him, is that level of pathology.
Wow. I I think it brings me back to two things. One is shame, masculine
Yep.
shame, and castration. What is that? And the other thing, I was sometimes I get ideas. I don't know why they pop in my head, but for some reason this morning, getting ready for this, I was thinking of a concept. Is there such a thing as gentle discipline?
Yeah,
I was
I think
thinking the
so.
idea of like a harsh father's harsh discipline, and not a maternal discipline,
Okay.
but a gentle fatherly discipline.
Yeah.
You know, like direct moral direction of the
Yes.
son. I thought gentle discipline. What would that be like for a kind father to do, which Kraven did not have? So back to
No.
shame. Here's what I think shame is. I think there is no trauma that does not inflict a shaming wound.
Agreed.
If something happens to you and it is not shaming, it's not a trauma. It's a disappointment. It's a frustration, but it is not a trauma. Not even a
Right.
trauma with a little t. There's got to be a shame experience. Now, what is shame? I think if these masculine and feminine instincts do exist and they're getting proven one by one by the London researchers, then shame is precisely this. It is a cutting down of a quantifiable amount of masculine energy or masculinity or
Right.
femininity for a woman. It's a cutting down of that, which
Yes.
simultaneously is a blocking of the exercise of one of the masculine instincts or one of the feminine instincts. In other words, stymied in the use of a natural
Yeah.
masculine or feminine instinct, and simultaneously a depletion of what Freud called libido, which he
Yes.
meant life force by that word, just life force, not sexual appetite, but life force.
That's what
So
people
for a
get wrong.
male,
Yeah.
that's what masculinity is. Masculinity is life force for a male. Femininity is life force for a female. So literally, if you shame someone or they get shamed,
Yeah.
traumatized, aka, they suffer a depletion of their sense of existence, of
Yes.
existing. Even though their body is alive, it's their soul. Like when they have called the R word soul murder in the past,
Yes. Yes.
right? Soul murder. That was popular in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. They called it that. For
Yeah.
males, there's an equivalent, soul murder. Well, what happens when the masculinity is tied to I must be the best hunter to ever
Exactly.
live, and you fail at that? Then does the soul completely deplete to zero as a result, and the body is still there, but the soul is dead, which is
Well,
the same
right.
as
Exactly.
unaliving. Unaliving.
That's a good mic drop. I got to run get an
You
appointment
got it,
here,
buddy.
but I like that. So let's do some more movie. I'm gonna try to get some White Lotus watching in over the next few days to
Great.
catch up, and get conversant on that and maybe
It's
live
well worth
talk.
the investment.
Oh yeah,
Well worth
I
it.
hear
Yeah.
you. All right, talk to
Best
you later, man. This
drama.
is great.
All right. You take it easy. Thank you.